Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming operational case study examinations happening in February 2024. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for OCS at TCS. So let's look at the session plan. So just like how I conducted previous week's webinar, I'll be first things first taking you through feedback based on what I've understood or what I've encountered when marking your answer script. So I will be providing general feedback, focusing on elements which you need to improve in the coming 1.5 weeks. Then I will be in the second part of today's workshop, I will be taking you through a question and an answer which is relevant for CVP analysis or cost volume profit analysis, or in other terms, break-even analysis. So at your examination, simply break-even analysis will not be tested. Instead, the examiner will test your knowledge about multi-product break-even analysis, especially given the fact that personal best is involved with producing different types of products. They are selling a range of different types of products. So based on it, your knowledge pertaining to multi-product break-even analysis will be tested. So I will be covering this element in today's workshop. And at the very end, I will be opening up the session for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, by this time, you should have at least attempted 4 mock exams out of the 5 mock exams you're supposed to complete. So by now, since you are done with 4 mock exams, you would have encountered certain issues. There could be gaps in knowledge pertaining to theoretical elements, or there could be issues pertaining to application skills. So all these things will be addressed in today's workshop. So before we get into the technicalities, let me remind you about the final Q&A, which is happening on the 3rd of February, next Saturday. So this Q&A happens 2 or 3 days before your examination. So in this, the last, workshop, I will be providing you with last minute tips with the intention of ensuring that you have a positive attitude, a positive mindset before the examination, because you have to be confident if you are to fulfill your role as a finance officer. You have to be confident about the type of answers you are supposed to develop, because if you doubt yourself, if you doubt about your skill set, then that would reflect on your answer scripts. So you have to be confident. So focused on these elements, I will be taking you through, or I will be actually providing you certain tips pertinent to what you need to do to improve your level of confidence 2 or 3 days before the examination. All right. So looking at the first part of today's workshop, I saw an improvement when compared to what you had done in the previous week. So when I conducted the first workshop, by that time I said couple of students had already completed mock number 3, and I, based on what I saw when marking your answer scripts, I provided general feedback, and I'm happy to say that most students had completed up until mock number 4, and I saw a significant improvement in the way in which you have developed your answers, and I'm really happy about it, which shows that you have actually learned something out of the answering and time management techniques which we highlighted. And on top of that, you have done something to improve your answering technique. Primarily, this could be due to the fact that you had gone through the master classes. By doing that, you have understood what's expected from you, and I feel that you had kept on redeveloping answer plans, which had helped you immensely to improve your skill set. So although these improvements are there, I saw these shortcomings in when going through certain answer scripts. So deflection from task requirement was a major issue. I'm not saying that in all the subtasks this was the case, but in certain subtasks, I saw that students had actually not really understood what the requirement is. So again and again, I've been telling this. What you need to do is, after going through a certain requirement, you need to reiterate the requirement in your own words in a concise form, so that you really understand the requirement. And on top of that, whilst developing the answer plans, you can easily refer back to the requirement which you have reiterated in your own words in a simpler form, so that you can keep track of whether you are headed in the right direction when developing the answer plan. So according to the answering and time management techniques which we highlighted, I said that you need to allocate something like 20 to 25 minutes to develop something called an answer plan. This is where you are structuring your answer. Once you are done with it, it's just a matter of expanding the answer plan. So you are spending a considerable amount of time to plan out your answer. So when it comes to planning the answer, the first step towards coming up with a high quality answer plan is to understand the requirement clearly. So it's of utmost importance that you reiterate the requirement in your own words in a concise form, so that whilst developing the answer plan, constantly you can keep checking whether you are headed in the correct direction. And another problem which I encountered is lack of theoretical knowledge as well as lack of application skills. So, this is normal, especially when dealing with students who are coming through an exemption route. Because if you are coming through the CIMA general route, since you are done with your OTQ exams, you are conversant with theory. So when marking papers of students coming through the general route, I did not see this issue pertaining to theoretical knowledge. But looking at students coming through the exemption routes, there are gaps in knowledge. And particularly when going through your answer scripts, I saw, especially focused on mock exam 4, I identified that there were gaps in knowledge pertaining to multi-product break-even analysis, because I was not too happy with the type of answers which we have provided. So because I encountered this issue, I thought of covering this element in covering this area rather in today's workshop. So the best way to improve your theoretical knowledge is to refer to the master classes which we have provided. And on top of that, after receiving tutor feedback, you need to focus on the subtasks in which your performance was low, and based on these subtasks, you need to redevelop answer plans. So for each of the 5 mock exams, we have provided you with answer plans. So try to keep practicing redeveloping answer plans until you come up with an answer which is akin to the answer plans which we have provided. I'm not asking you guys to memorize answer plans. Instead, try to get the logic. You need to keep recreating answer plans on your own, practice answering technique with the intention of significantly improving your answers. Okay, so that's what I have to say about theoretical knowledge. And you need to watch the master classes and keep redeveloping answer plans in order to improve your theoretical knowledge. And I also encountered not just when dealing with students coming through the exemption route, even when marking papers of students who are coming through the CIMA general route, I encountered issues with application, especially pertaining to KPI related questions. So as I mentioned earlier, there could be 2 instances where KPI related questions will be thrown at you. The examiner sometimes keeps KPI related questions open. The examiner will not highlight a certain issue faced by the company. Instead, simply the examiner might say, okay, suggest KPIs which will improve the efficiency within our production operations. Or the examiner would say, it's the board had decided to keep track of the efficiency within production operations. With this intention in mind, the board members are asking you to suggest KPIs. So in such an environment, it's an open-ended question. You can come up with any type of KPI. However, simply mentioning the KPI won't help you. You need to provide an appropriate justification. You need to build an argument and say as to why you are suggesting a certain KPI. So that's where your application skills come into play. And on top of that, sometimes the examiner will not keep a KPI related question open. Instead, the examiner will say, okay, these type of issues are faced by the company, and with the intention of fixing these issues, come up with your KPIs. So in such an instance, your application skills will be tested heavily, because you have to have the ability to understand the shortcomings experienced by the company. And for each shortcoming, you have to come up with a KPI, and this KPI which you are suggesting, you need to back it up with appropriate justifications and say as to why you are suggesting or recommending a certain KPI. So in these elements, your application skills are tested. So I saw shortcomings in this area when considering the students coming through the general route as well as the exemption routes. So the best way to overcome these gaps in application skills is to watch the master classes, because when conducting the master classes, whilst teaching you or explaining the logic behind each answer, we have ensured to teach you theory as well as improve application skills. So watch these master classes as well as refer to our answer plans, so that you'd significantly improve your application skills. And another issue was pertaining to the number of points which appears within the answer plans. This had actually improved a lot. Most of the students have gotten a grasp of what's expected from them. So as I suggested in the third webinar answering technique, I said that each and every subtask carries a weightage, and this weightage indicates how many marks are allocated. So based on the mark allocations, you can easily determine how many answer points need to appear within each and every answer plan. So for instance, for a certain subtask, if 14 marks are allocated, each valid answer point carries something like 2 marks. So if the mark allocation for a certain subtask is 14 marks, you need to have 6 to 7 valid points within your answer plan. So that's how we are supposed to determine the number of answer points based on the mark allocations. If so, you won't you'd come up with a high quality answer. You won't come up with an answer which is too long or too short. Instead, you would come up with the best type of answer, which is totally aligned with the mark allocation. So keep practicing your answering technique. When trying to implement the answering and time management techniques, although I've said that you are supposed to allocate something like 20 to 25 minutes to develop an answer plan, when you try to do it for the first time, you'd take something like 40 to 45 minutes to develop your answer plan. That's totally fine. Keep practicing your answering technique in order to, with the intention of getting it right at your real examination. So that's the general feedback which I need to provide. Kudos to you who had attempted up until mock number 4 as at now. And those who have attempted the 4 mocks from mock 3, when you compare your mock 3 and the marks which you have gained for mock 3 and mock 4, there's a considerable improvement. You would have encountered that, you for yourself would have understood that. So let's keep moving forward. You just have 1.5 weeks at your disposal. So in the upcoming week, you should be focused on attempting mock exam 5. And once the mock exams are done, then utilizing 2 or 3 days of your time, you should keep redeveloping answer plans for all 5 mocks. That's the best type of revision which you need to be involved with. Do not waste time trying to go through your past notes or your study texts and whatnot. We have covered the entire syllabus via the 5 mock exams. So keep redeveloping answer plans. That's the best approach towards achieving a first time pass at your OCS exam. Okay, so that's what you are supposed to do in the upcoming 1.5 weeks. So before we move forward and move on to CVP analysis, question and answer discussion pertaining to CVP analysis, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. I'm on the OCS page. If you are yet to check out our free content, click on this button, create a user account. Then you'd get access to the student dashboard, and via the student dashboard, you'd have access to the recorded versions of the 4 webinars which we have conducted, as well as the recorded versions of the workshops which we have conducted so far. And on top of that, you'd also have access to the mini mock, its suggested answer, and the answer plan. And if you are interested in investing on our paid content, before you do that, check our sample material to gain an understanding about what type of resources will be at your disposal. And if you're yet to be part and parcel of the OCS WhatsApp discussion forum, simply click on this button and join it. And talking about the two packages we offer for OCS, first things first, I'll talk about the value pack. The value pack is designed for students who are coming through the CIMA general route. So if you're coming through the general route, you have completed your OTQ examinations, which indicates that you are conversant with theoretical elements. So focused on these type of students, we have developed the value pack. So the value pack comes with the recordings of all the webinars and workshops, 5 exams, 5 mock exams with suggested answers. So we have made sure to cover the entire syllabus, via these 5 mock exams. And you'd also have access to 4 pre-scene analysis videos. So if you watch these 4 videos, you'd gain an in-depth understanding about the internal dynamics as well as the external dynamics of personal best. And on top of that, you'd also gain an appropriate level of knowledge about the financial performance of the company. You'd also gain access to the annotated pre-scene. So this is the same pre-scene document, but we have come up with tutor annotations with the intention of coming up with an appropriate summary, which makes your life easy when it comes to decrypting the pre-scene document. So if you go through these annotations, you can easily understand what's highlighted within the pre-scene. And on top of that, as part of these annotations, we have also highlighted the type of theoretical elements which can be tested and the type of scenarios which can be thrown at you at your real examination. So, and when conducting the 4 pre-scene analysis videos, we had utilized this annotated pre-scene. So that's what you'd gain access to under the value pack. And you'd also gain access to the industry and financial analysis slides. So the industry analysis slides look something like this. So we have developed this set of industry analysis slides with the intention of ensuring that you gain an in-depth understanding about your chosen industry. And we have built these industry analysis slides based on real life information which affects your real industry in a real sense. Okay, so the same could be said about the financial analysis slides. At the very end of your pre-scene document, you would have seen financial statements. So each of these financial statements, we have evaluated them and we have come up with tutor annotations. And when coming up with these annotations, we have kept things simple so that you can easily understand what happens within this company in a financial sense. So all these financial statements, such as the SOPL, the SOFP, as well as the statement of cash flows, all these different financial statements have been evaluated. And at the very end, a ratio analysis is also conducted. And each of these ratios, we have evaluated them, yet we have kept things simple so that you can easily understand what happens within the company. And you'd also gain access to top 10 likely issue slides. So, these slides highlight the type of scenarios which can be thrown at you at the real examination. And you'd also gain access to a case study familiarization kit. You can get an understanding about the technicalities behind the OCS exam by going through this document. You'd have access to a tutor managed live chat so that whenever you have questions or concerns, you can raise these issues and get instantaneous responses. And on top of that, you'd also gain access to OTQ revision cards. So after attempting a certain mock exam, if you feel that you lack an appropriate level of knowledge about a certain theoretical element, quickly go to your OTQ revision cards, check the relevant area, and you can easily brush up your knowledge about the relevant theoretical element. So that's the value pack, and it is priced at £199. And talking about the premium package, it comes with a pass guarantee. I'll explain what the pass guarantee is later on. So the premium package is designed for students who are coming through the exemption routes and for those who had failed your OCS examination. So both these type of students have the same issue, which is about a lack of theoretical knowledge and a lack of an understanding about how to improve application skills. So focused on these two shortcomings, lack of theoretical knowledge and lack of application skills, we have developed the premium package. So it comes with all different types of material, which I highlighted under the value pack. Additionally, you'd have access to an online mock exam platform. You can attempt each of your mock exams, all 5 mock exams under exam conditions. So you can keep practicing your answering and time management techniques. And on top of that, you can get accustomed to exam stress, because in the 4th webinar, I highlighted what you need to do whenever you are faced with exam stress. I said that you need to focus on your breathing. I was talking about a certain part of your brain, which is known as the amygdala. When you are panicking, it leads to brain freeze. Why? Because this small part of your brain, which is known as the amygdala, starts working, which gives out the stress response. So when the amygdala is in play, what happens is you'd try to come up with answers which are without thinking it through. So you try to come up with quick responses. And as you know, quick responses are not the best responses. So if you try to develop answers extremely quickly out of panic, then you'd forget about quality, you'd forget about the requirement, you'd start coming up with answers which are totally irrelevant to the requirement, irrelevant to the scenario. So with that in mind, I said that in order to shut out your amygdala, you need to focus on your breathing. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. You need to focus on your breathing for 2 minutes. Close your eyes, focus on your breathing. Then, you'd identify that you are back to normal. Then your prefrontal cortex will start working. You have to, when you are involved with rational decision making, you have to always take decisions from using your prefrontal cortex. So the best way to ensure that the amygdala is not in play, but you are using your prefrontal cortex, is to focus on your breathing. Close your eyes, focus on your breathing for 2 minutes. I highlighted all these things in the 4th webinar. So it's better to encounter brain freeze and all these inefficiencies before, when attempting each of your mock exams, rather than facing these type of issues at your real examination. It's better to get accustomed to these issues and practice how to overcome these issues when practicing each of your mock exams. So with that in mind, we have developed this mock exam platform, which is akin to the Pearson VUE system, which you'd use at your real examination. So this is extremely beneficial for you. And you'd also gain access to one-on-one tutor feedback with regards to mocks 3, 4, and 5. So out of the 5 mocks, the first 2 mocks are there to get your bearings with your answering and time management techniques. And by the time you are at mock number 3, you would have mastered these techniques up to a certain extent. So if that is the case, and you'd come up with better answers. So that's why we are providing you with tutor feedback for mocks 3, 4, and 5. And this is the type of feedback which we provide at TCS. So as you can see, on a paragraph by paragraph basis, all your shortcomings have been highlighted. So if you look at this answer, the first answer has everything to do with IAS 10, but I've identified major shortcomings within the answer provided by the student. And considering these shortcomings, I've come up with the type of answers the student should have come up with. So all these type of shortcomings and recommendations to improve or get rid of these shortcomings have been provided as part of these feedback which we have provided. So throughout the answer script, you can see the type of feedback this student had received. So, and at the very end, mark allocations are provided, and a success rate has been calculated on a subtask by subtask basis. So these yellow highlighted areas indicate the subtasks in which the performance was substandard. So after receiving tutor feedback, rather than trying to attempt the entire mock again, allocating 3 hours of your time, there's absolutely no point of doing it. Rather than that, you should solely focus on improving your answer planning or answering technique. So focused on the subtasks in which your performance was not up to the required level of standard, you have to redevelop the answer plans. So, and at the very end, general comments are also provided with the intention of ensuring that you really understand your shortcomings and overcome each. So that's the type of feedback which we provide at TCS. And The premium package comes with answer plans for all 5 mock exams. In a little while, when I'm taking you through the question pertaining to CVP analysis, you'd see an answer plan, then you'd understand how beneficial it is for you. Because when you go through the answer plan, you can easily understand the structure of the answer, easily understand how theoretical elements had been included within the answer, and how application skills should be focused upon. And the premium package comes with 20 master classes, and we have developed 5 mock exams, just like in your real examination. Each mock exam consists of 4 tasks. So 4 tasks into 5 mock exams comes up to 20 tasks in total. So focused on each of the tasks covered within the mock exams, we have developed master classes, and in each master class, we are teaching you theory and application skills, whilst explaining the logic behind each and every answer. You'd identify how we are conducting master classes when I take you through the question and answer pertaining to CVP analysis. And the premium package comes with a pass guarantee. So if you invest on the premium package yet end up failing, you'd gain access to the premium package once more in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim your pass guarantee, you have to complete all 5 mock exams. If not, you are not in a position to cover the entire syllabus, and your solutions need to be original. I do not want you guys to go through the answer plans or watch the master classes before attempting each mock exam. If you're doing that, you are tricking yourself. Rather than tricking yourself, it's better to see what your shortcomings are, especially when attempting mocks 3, 4, and 5. Do your best job and try to identify what your shortcomings are, because when you really understand your shortcomings, you are in a position to significantly improve the quality of the answers you provide at your real exam. And you have to meet the performance criteria as well. So when attempting mocks 3, 4, and 5, you need to achieve 40% or more in order to be in a position to claim the pass guarantee. We have come up with this criteria with the intention of ensuring that you are extremely serious about what you do when attempting mocks 3, 4, and 5, especially given the fact that we are giving you tutor feedback for these 3 mocks. Because I spent something like 2 hours to mark one answer script. That's why I'm saying that you have to be serious when it comes to attempting the 3 mocks to benefit immensely from the tutor feedback which we provide to you. So if you achieve these 3 tasks, there's absolutely no way that you'd fail your OCS examination. After achieving these 3 things, even if you end up failing, which is highly unlikely, you'd gain access to the premium package in your subsequent sitting free of charge. So the premium package is priced at £649. You can pay it in 2 installments of £324 each, or you can pay in full and gain the benefit of a £100 discount. If you pay in full, the package is priced at £549. And you can also check the OCS study plan by clicking on this button. So that's what we offer at TCS. So having said that, let's move to the mock exam discussion, where, as I mentioned, I will be taking you through a question and answer which has everything to do with CVP analysis. So before we move forward, a question had come through, so I'm going to address that concern. Let me pause the recording. All right, thank you for that question. I hope I addressed your concern. So having done that, let's move on to the mock exam discussion. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll be taking you through one of the questions which is covered under mock exam 4. As one of the students had highlighted, there are issues with KPIs. Yes, there's a question about KPIs here. I will take you through that question as well. So we are on the student dashboard, which can be found via our website. So section number 3, subtask B. So that's the question I want to focus your attention on. On an unrelated matter, the board has decided to introduce a protein biscuit range. So this was mentioned within your pre-seen document at the very end. Meeting minutes taken from the board of the company were provided, and in it was mentioned that the company is contemplating about introducing a protein biscuit range. And I've considered that element, that information, when developing this question. So on an unrelated matter, the board has decided to introduce a protein biscuit range, and it comes in 3 flavors: coconut, chocolate, and peanut. So that's the new type of protein biscuit range which we are trying to introduce. It comes with 3 flavors: coconut, chocolate, and peanut. At our finance director's request, I have prepared a multi-product break-even chart. See reference material 3. So let's go through reference material 3 before we try to identify what's highlighted within the requirement. So the break-even chart was formulated using the following financial information. So the 3 product ranges are there, and the totals have been provided. So the revenues which we are intending to achieve for each of the product ranges have been provided. So as you can see, we are planning to generate a higher amount of revenue by selling our peanut range, and the lowest amount of revenue, we are planning to achieve the lowest amount of revenue by selling the coconut range. And the total variable cost of each product range had been provided, and based on that, the total contribution we are planning to generate when selling each of these product ranges have also been provided. And as you can see, we are planning to achieve the highest amount of contribution by selling the peanut range of products. And the total fixed costs have been provided, which is at $188,000. And based on that, the profitability by selling these 3 ranges have been determined, which comes up to $624,000. And the CS ratio for each product range had been provided as well. Although the contribution is the highest for the peanut range, when you look at the contribution to sales ratio, or in other terms, the CS ratio, how do you calculate the CS ratio? It's contribution divided by sales. So this indicates the amount of contribution generated by a certain product compared to its sales value. So it's 50% for the peanut range, 53% for the chocolate range, and 58% for the coconut range. So the highest CS ratio is pertaining to the coconut range of products. So this product range generates the highest level of contribution, or in other words, it can be determined as the most profitable out of the 3 ranges. So if I further explain what the CS ratio is, let's assume that the sales value of the peanut range is $100. If that is the case, by selling a single product, a peanut range based product, we'd be generating a contribution which amounts to $50. And looking at the coconut range, if we sell a single unit of coconut product which falls under the coconut range, and if the price is $100, we'd end up generating a contribution of $58. So that's what the CS ratio tells us. And in its totality, the CS ratio, when considering all 3 products, it's 54%. Okay. And the fixed cost of $188,000 comprises of additional marketing costs which were incurred to promote the new protein biscuit range. The break-even point of the BEP chart is as depicted below. So this 188,000 is totally relevant only to these 3 product ranges. Why? Because these are the marketing costs which we are planning to incur when trying to market these 3 products. So this does not include general fixed overheads or general fixed costs. Instead, these only comprise of fixed costs which are totally applicable only to these 3 product ranges. That's what's indicated in here. So let's look at the graph which is provided. So as you can see, there are 3 different lines, and there are 2 points highlighted as X and Y, and there are further multiple points as well which are named as A, B, and C. Okay, so that's that. Let's look at the requirement. Hope you can explain the attached chart. Also, highlight the advantages and disadvantages of carrying out a break-even analysis on our new protein biscuit range. So This subtask consists of two main elements. First things first, you have to explain the attached chart. So that's the first part of this requirement. Then the second part is to highlight the advantages and disadvantages of carrying out a break-even analysis. So if you only end up explaining this chart, you won't get full marks. Instead, in one or two answer scripts, I saw this issue. Students probably they ran out of time. Because of that, they have only explained the chart, but according to the requirement, you are supposed to fulfill two things. You are supposed to explain the chart and also highlight the advantages and disadvantages of carrying out this type of an analysis. So let's look at what type of answers you are supposed to provide. So I've come up with a main heading which goes as multi-product break-even chart, which is in bold and underlined format. I highlighted these things in the third webinar answering technique. If you missed out on it, please watch the recorded version, because if you're clueless about an answering technique, you'd always run out of time. You'd be clueless about how to structure your answers appropriately. If that is the case, you'd end up failing your OCS exam. So when attempting each of the 5 mock exams, you have to keep practicing these answering and time management techniques in order to get it right. So let's look at how you are supposed to explain the graph first. So there is a horizontal line which is demarcated in pink, which is your fixed cost line, and it's already mentioned, so it makes your life easy. So as per the question, our fixed costs comes up to fixed costs comes up to $188,000. That's exactly what you can see in here. So it's right below 200,000. So that's our fixed cost line. So that's exactly what I've mentioned here. The horizontal line indicates the fixed cost line, which remains the same at different activity levels. So at different revenue levels or different activity levels, the fixed cost remains the same. Okay, so that's the type of an evaluation you need to provide. There's absolutely no point of saying the horizontal line or the line which is denoted in pink is the fixed cost line. You have to go a step further and apply your theoretical knowledge. You have to explain why this line remains as it is. Okay, so that's what I've done here. And then I'm explaining the purple colored line, which is the 0C line. 0C line, the purple colored line. So this straight line is the weighted, or denotes the weighted average contribution line. So this purple colored line is the weighted average contribution line. Most students said, stop the answer at this point. You have to go a step further. This is not just the weighted average contribution line. This is the weighted average contribution line at different sales levels if the expected sales mix remains constant. So in order to gain full marks when trying to define what this line stands for, you need to mention this element within your answer as well. So if the expected sales mix remains constant, then considering the existing sales mix, if we come up with a weighted average contribution line, that's what this line denotes. So if you look at the product mix, we are supposed to generate a higher amount of revenue by selling the peanut range and the lowest amount of revenue by selling the coconut range. So assuming the fact that we sell the 3 products in these sales mixes, then if we draw a weighted average contribution line, the purple line would look like such. Okay, so that's what you need to understand. So the straight line denotes the weighted average contribution line at different sales levels if the expected sales mix remains constant. And when you look at this line, connected to it, you can see a point which is denoted as Y. So what does this indicate? This is the break-even point. So point Y indicates the break-even point on the weighted average contribution line. So I said that the purple colored line denotes the weighted average contribution line, and Y denotes the break-even point. Okay, so what does it stand for? To break even, we need to achieve sales revenue of approximately $350,000. So if you look at how much sales we are supposed to generate, in a general sense, we can say that we have to generate something like $350,000 worth of revenue in order to break even. Or in other terms, in order to cover our fixed costs, we have to at least achieve sales amounting to $375,000. So from beyond this point, if we end up generating more sales, it contributes towards profitability. However, after we sell these three product ranges, if our total revenue which we have generated is less than $350,000, then that indicates that we have made losses. So up until this point, we are making losses. Beyond this point, we are making profits. So the position at which there is zero loss or zero profit is known as the break-even point. So in other words, this is the point at which we are recovering our fixed costs. So that's exactly why when determining the break-even point, we look at the point at which the weighted average contribution line intersects the fixed cost line. So that indicates the point at which we are recovering our fixed costs. So in order to recover our fixed costs, or in order to achieve the break-even point, or in other terms, in order to be in a position where there is zero loss, no profit, we have to achieve sales amounting to something like $350,000. So that's where you gain marks for application. So if you simply say to break even, we need to achieve a certain amount of sales, you are not going to get any marks for application. Instead, you need to go a step further, look at the graph and say at which point we'd break even based on the information provided in the graph. So that's exactly what I've done in here. And let's move on to the orange colored line. It consists of three different points as well, points A, B, and C. And there's a different, break-even point, which is denoted as X. So let's try to figure out what this indicates. The orange colored line, or the 0 ABC line, 0 ABC line. Okay. So this orange colored line represents the relationship between the contribution and sales, or in other words, this line is drawn considering the CS ratios. And we assume that the products are sold in the order of the CS ratio. So according to the CS ratios provided, the highest CS ratio is for the coconut range. So this orange colored line is drawn assuming that we first sell the most, the products which generate the most amount of contribution. So we first focus on selling only the coconut range. Then we move on to selling the chocolate range, and utilizing the remaining resources, we try to sell the peanut range. So that's the assumption we adhere to when drawing this orange colored line, or the CS ratio line. So again, if I mention what I've highlighted right now, we assume when drawing this line, we assume the fact that we are selling the products in the order of its contribution. So we try to sell the most, the products which generate the most amount of contribution first, then move on to the products which carries the second best contribution, and then we focus on selling the products which carries the least amount of contribution. Okay, so that actually does not happen in real life. We cannot pick and select when we introduce three product ranges to the market. We cannot, try to push the product which carries the most type of amount of contribution. Instead, it's up to the customers. However, when it comes to decision making, especially concerning the CVP analysis, we utilize a lot of assumptions, which makes our life easy when it comes to decision making. This is not the most accurate way to do it. However, when it comes to short-term decision making, we have to rely on a multitude of assumptions. So that's what the orange colored line represents. It represents the relationship between the contribution and sales. And we draw this line assuming that the products are sold in the order of the CS ratio. And most students had stopped at this point. However, since there are several different points highlighted within the graph, it's better to explain these points. So I've not explained all these points. Instead, I've explained just one of the elements highlighted within this graph. So I've explained what is indicated by looking at points 0 and A. So within these 2 points, what type of information is indicated? So point 0 to A indicates the contribution from the sale of coconut business range. Why? Because it's the product range which carries the highest CS ratio of 58%. So that's where you get your marks for application skills. So if you leave out this area, you won't get any marks for application. Okay. So you need to, when explaining the graph, you need to provide high quality explanation, thereby explaining all the elements as possible. So as per the information provided, the highest CS ratio is for the coconut range. And when drawing this orange colored graph, we assume that the most the product range which carries the highest contribution is sold first. So that's what's indicated between these 2 points, 0 and A. And what's indicated between A and B, the product range which carries the second most amount of contribution, which is the chocolate range. And points B to C indicates the contribution generated by selling the least or the product range which carries the least amount of contribution, which is the peanut range. So you need to provide explanations as such. Then you need to also explain what point X indicates. So this is the point at which we achieve the break-even point, or the point at which we recover our fixed costs, or the point at which there's zero loss, no profit, considering the products, assuming that the products are sold in the order of each product category's contribution to sales ratio. So as you can see, the point X denotes the BEP in the new orange colored line. And you can see that the break-even point is, lesser, or the break-even point is achieved earlier compared to the previous line. Why is that the case? You need to explain as to why this break-even point is achieved earlier when compared to the purple colored line. So the BEP is lower or achieved sooner, break-even is achieved sooner, or we are recovering our fixed costs sooner than the weighted average contribution line. Why? Because the products with the highest CS ratios are sold first. So when we are selling the products with the highest contribution, then what it indicates is we are recovering our fixed costs faster. So when we sell the products with the highest CS ratio, we are recovering our fixed costs faster. Because of that, we are achieving the break-even point sooner or faster when compared to the weighted average contribution line, which assumes that all 3 product ranges are sold in the planned sales mix. So that's why when previously, in order to break even, we were supposed to generate sales amounting to $350,000, but according to the line drawn, considering the CS ratios, since we are selling the products which generates the most amount of contribution first, we are recovering our fixed costs faster. So because of that, our new break-even point is somewhere around $325,000. So in other words, in order to recover fixed costs, or in order to be in a position where we are generating zero profits, no losses, then we have to achieve sales which comes up to approximately $325,000. Okay, that's the type of evaluation you are supposed to provide. Then moving on to the second part of the question, you are supposed to highlight the benefits and limitations of break-even analysis. So with that in mind, I've come up with a subheading which is in bold format. So first things first, I'm starting my answer by explaining what this graph indicates. So the graph indicates the sales level required to cover the fixed costs. Yes, or in other words, this is termed as the break-even point. The graph also indicates the margin of safety. So the margin of safety, whenever you are talking about a theoretical element, it's better to define what it is. So I've defined the margin of safety. This is the amount by which revenue can fall from the expected revenue before a loss is made. Or in other terms, this is our safety buffer. So the margin of safety, by looking at this graph, we can determine the margin of safety. Or in other words, we can indicate or we can actually understand or identify the safety buffer at our disposal. So we can lose sales amounting to the margin of safety before we start making losses. So the expected revenue, according to the graph, is $1.55 million. So that's the expected revenue, after selling all these three different types of products. Expected sales revenue is somewhere around 1.515. Looking at the graph, it's something similar to that. It's I've mentioned it as $1.55 million. These are all approximations, because by looking at the graph, we cannot accurately determine how much of sales we are supposed to generate. So that's what I've mentioned, and based on that, we can calculate or compute the margin of safety. So the margin of safety is expected revenues minus the break-even point. Yeah, so the expected revenue, when it's 1.55 million, I said that the break-even point appears to be $350,000. So 1.55 million minus 0.35 million, or $350,000, comes up to 1.2 million. So if you look at this area from this point up until this point, this is our safety buffer or margin of safety. So sales can drop by $1.2 million before we start experiencing losses. So this is our safety buffer. So this is a significant margin of safety, especially given the fact that we are introducing a new product to the market. So it appears that these estimates are over optimistic, because when operating in a new market, it's highly unlikely that we'd face such a significant margin of safety or a safety buffer. So because of that, this is where you get marks for application. I'm saying I have not stopped my answer in here. I've gone a step further and mentioned that this could be too over optimistic. And then moving on, it's unrealistic to assume that we can sell the products in the order of the CS ratio, as I mentioned earlier, because the orange colored line is drawn considering the CS ratios. So because of that, the orange colored line becomes unrealistic, because if you look at real life dynamics, we cannot, when we are introducing three product ranges, we cannot force customers to purchase the products which carries the highest amount of contribution. Instead, it's up to the consumers to decide what type of products they will purchase. And it's unlikely to sell our product ranges at a constant sales mix, because although we are planning to generate these type of revenues, $450,000, $515,000, and $550,000 selling these three different types of product ranges, when we sell in an actual sense, the product mix could be different. We might end up selling or generating a lot of revenue selling the coconut range, although according to the plans, we are supposed to generate the lowest amount of revenue when selling the coconut range. If the customers love it, they'd end up consuming it more. If that is the case, we generate a higher revenue than planned for the coconut range, and for another type of product category such as the peanut range, the revenues could be lower than expected. So we cannot assume, it's unlikely to sell a constant sell at a constant sales mix, and if we sell in a different mix, the break-even point will be higher, the actual BEP break-even point will be higher. And on top of that, what you need to really understand is the actual break-even point will lie between the two lines. So the actual break-even point will be between $325,000 to $350,000. Okay, that's what you need to understand. For example, so I'm justifying my point. If a higher proportion of the peanut biscuit range is sold, which carries the lowest CS ratio. So looking at the CS ratio, the lowest CS ratio is pertaining to the peanut range. So if we sell a higher portion of the product category which carries the lowest type of lowest amount of CS ratio, then the weighted average CS ratio will be lower. Then if that is the case, we'd have to generate more sales in order to arrive at the break-even point. And figures which are used are estimates, as I mentioned earlier, and assumes a linear relationship over the whole range, which is not the case in reality. These estimates could be totally wrong. And on top of that, we assume a linear relationship between, for instance, if you consider the variable and fixed costs, we consider a linear relationship, but that is not the case. I've highlighted that point, or I've explained that point in here. We are assuming that costs can be defined as fixed or variable. So in the short term, many costs that appear to be variable are fixed. So labor costs, if we are paying salaries to employees, we usually, in the short term, we usually consider labor costs to be variable. However, if we are paying monthly salaries, that is not the case. It's actually a fixed cost, because the monthly salaries which we pay, it does not change respecting the output levels. Just because the output levels keep on fluctuating, we do not pay different salaries every month. Instead, if there are salaried employees, they keep receiving the same amount of salaries. So in the short term, although we consider labor costs as variable, in an actual sense, part of labor costs are actually fixed costs. So, when drawing up this graph, we are considering something called the contribution. So how do we arrive at the contribution? So that's sales minus variable costs. And if we have included certain certain costs which are actually fixed as variable, then we'd come up with an inaccurate amount pertaining to contribution. So that's another shortcoming. And in the long term, all costs are variable. You would have learned these things under your P1 syllabus. So even if there is a fixed cost, in the long term, when output increases, fixed costs keep on increasing. You might have heard about something called stepped fixed costs. So when output keeps increasing, we are exposed to something called stepped fixed costs. So although we say that fixed costs remain constant in the short term, in the long term, if you look at the bigger picture, when output keeps increasing, we'd have to keep increasing the fixed costs as well in a stepped manner, which in turn indicates that when output increases, fixed costs also increase in the long term. So if you are exposed to stepped fixed costs, it actually becomes a variable cost. Why? Because it indicates that the fixed costs keep changing when output increases. Okay. So because of that, our contribution computations as well as what we consider as fixed costs could be totally wrong in the long term. And fixed costs which are included in the chart represent only specific fixed costs. So we have considered a fixed cost of 188,000 when drawing up this graph. However, this is a specific fixed costs which only includes or comprises of additional marketing costs which were incurred to promote the new protein biscuit range. However, if the new biscuit range was allocated a share of general fixed overheads, because we have to definitely allocate general fixed overheads when doing up the calculations in an accurate manner. If that is the case, the break-even point will further increase, because if there are additional fixed costs coming in, we'd have to generate additional revenues to recover these additional fixed costs. So if that is the case, our break-even point will be higher than what we computed. And if so, our margin of safety will fall. So let's assume that our actual break-even point when after allocating the general fixed overheads is somewhere around $600,000, then our margin of safety or our safety buffer drops. So that's what you need to include within your answers. So as you have seen, I've utilized my knowledge pertaining to theoretical elements covering the multi-product break-even chart. And on top of that, I've also focused on, applying these theoretical elements with the intention of coming up with a high quality answer, and also focusing on application skills. I've, considered all the information presented within the graph as well as this table, rather than coming up with a highly theoretical answer. I've also focused on my application skills as well. So, this is exactly how we conduct our master classes. So as I suggested, whilst taking you through the logic of each answer, we are teaching you theory and ensuring that you understand the necessary application skills as well. Okay, then having said that, one of the students had raised a concern about a KPI related question. So let me fish for it. Yeah, so I'm looking at, again, mock number 4, section number 1, subtask B. Some of our suppliers are not sticking to the SLAs or the service level agreement. So this is the agreement which we sign with each and every supplier, which indicates what we need to adhere to and what each supplier needs to adhere to. This is actually, or in other words, this is the contract between us and each supplier. So some of our suppliers are not sticking to the contracts or the service level agreements. There had been delays in supplies of packaging material, which has affected production adversely. So when packaging material is not supplied in an instantaneous manner, it affects our production. That's definite. And additionally, some of the packaging material has been of inferior quality and had to be returned. So there's another issue. These guys are not supplying to us on time. And on top of that, the quality of the packaging material is not up to the required level of standard. And when we reported these issues, the suppliers were barely reachable. So we are not able to reach these folks as well. So this area highlights 3 issues pertinent to supply relationships. In this backdrop, the head of procurement thinks that it is better to pursue a single sourcing agreement. Yeah. So that's a question to do with working capital management. I'm not going to take you through that question. We are supposed to describe 3 KPIs which can be used to measure performance of our existing packaging material suppliers, justifying each KPIs. So when looking at this question, this is totally relevant to the information provided in the scenario. So in the scenario, as I said earlier, the examiner might keep it open-ended. If that is the case, your life becomes easy because you can come up with relevant KPIs as long as you can justify it. However, in this type of a question, the examiner is giving you the necessary information which highlights issues within the company, and for each issue you have to come up with your own KPI. So what are the 3 issues? These guys are not supplying us on time. There are delays, and on top of that, the packaging material which these guys had delivered, it's of inferior quality. So there are issues pertaining to quality, and these guys, when we tried to reach them, they were unreachable. So these are the issues. Considering these 3 issues, you are supposed to describe 3 KPIs which can be used to measure performance of our existing packaging material suppliers, justifying each KPI. So simply mentioning a KPI won't help you. You need to build an argument as to say how each KPI which you have recommended is relevant to the company. All right, so let's look at the answer. Again, I'm going to take you through the answer plan. Suggestion, I said that it's better to reiterate the requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So that's exactly what you can see in here. Suggest and justify 3 KPIs, packaging material suppliers. So the mark allocation is 11 marks based on the weightages provided. So yeah, let's move to the question. So I've come up with a main heading which goes as KPIs, packaging material suppliers, which is in bold and underlined format. So for the first issue, these guys are late when it comes to delivering. So I've come up with a simple KPI with the intention of fixing this issue, number of late deliveries. So you need not think out of this world. Instead, simply look at the problem and try to determine how we can fix this problem. So if these folks are delivering us late, then we have to keep track of the number of late deliveries. So that's the KPI which I've highlighted. Number of late deliveries, how do we calculate this? Number of late deliveries against expected lead time. So there is an expected lead time. When dealing with each supplier, there is a lead time. So the lead time is the time period between us placing an order and receiving the required set of orders. So that's considered as the lead time. So there is an expected level. However, if a certain supply is going beyond the predetermined lead times, then that indicates late delivery. So that's how we can compute it for each and every supplier. Just because our suppliers are late, we should not hold excessive stocks to counter this issue, because if you are holding on to excessive stocks, it's as if we are spending additional money to fix a problem which is created by our suppliers. So just because we are dealing with inefficient suppliers, we should not take the blame on ourselves and end up spending additional money. Instead, we have to find a solution to this issue. If you are dealing with inefficient suppliers, it's better to let go of them and find new suppliers rather than feeling the brunt of it. Suppliers must stick to lead times. However, suppliers are located across the country, so in such an environment, lead times are normal. From where did I get this information? From the pre-scene. So I said, when developing your answers, you need to consider especially at this level, at the OCS level, you need to consider the internal dynamics of personnel best. So within the pre-scene, it is mentioned that we are dealing with a multitude of suppliers spread across the country. So given that fact, it's expected that there will be lead times, and suppliers are manufacturing PB specific packaging material. Again, this information is taken from the pre-scene document, and lateness goes against collaborative relationships. It is mentioned in the pre-scene document that we enjoy collaborative relationships with our suppliers, or in other terms, we share a lot of knowledge with our suppliers, and suppliers share knowledge with us in return. And rather than trying to undercut our suppliers, trying to reduce their margins, we are trying to collaborate with them so that we achieve a win-win scenario. So if we are happy to collaborate or seek collaborative supplier relationships, as you know, if you had studied these elements under your E1 syllabus, there are two different types of supply relationships: competitive supply relationships as well as collaborative supply relationships. So in a competitive relationship, we are trying to win, at the same time making sure that the suppliers are losing out. How would the suppliers lose out? We are trying to ensure that we receive our supplies at the least cost. So we are trying to reduce the sales margins or the profit margins of our suppliers by asking for lower priced raw material or packaging material or whatever. Okay, so we are trying to win when the suppliers are losing out. So that's a competitive relationship. So in a competitive relationship, the issue is there could be compromises with regards to quality. So when we are trying to undercut our suppliers, trying to reduce their profit margins, suppliers will be dissatisfied with us. So because of this dissatisfaction, they might supply us late, they might supply inferior quality raw material or packaging material in this instance. Okay, however, that is not the case. If you look at personal based situation, we are striving for collaborative relationships. So in a collaborative relationship, we are trying to ensure that both us as well as the suppliers are winning. So in such an environment, we are not trying to unnecessarily reduce the cost of the packaging material. We pay our suppliers on time, we'll pay them properly, and in return the suppliers are expected to supply us on time and supply us with high quality packaging material. So that's the responsibility of the suppliers, but it appears that these individuals are not sticking to these collaborative relationships. So when we are paying these guys on time, when we are treating them properly, when we are not trying to undercut them, these guys are not supplying us on time. These guys are supplying us with inferior quality raw packaging material. So all these things goes against collaborative relationships. So that's how I've brought in pre-scene relevant information when developing the answer. And the second issue is pertaining to quality issues. So how can we fix this problem? By considering a KPI such as percentage of returns due to poor quality. So how do we compute this? We have to look at the percentage of returns against total delivery. So if 100,000 units of packaging material were delivered to us, out of that, how much were returns? So if 20,000 units were not up to the required level of standard, then that indicates that the returns due to quality issues comes up to something like 20%. Okay, so by looking at this KPI, we can ensure that our suppliers are adhering to the requirements pertaining to quality. Product quality depends on the quality of packaging material supplied. So our product quality depends on the quality of packaging material supplied. So when we try to, get our quality right, when, manufacturing our product categories, and just because of the suppliers supplying us with inferior quality packaging material, because of that, if it affects customer relationships in a negative manner, if our customers are dissatisfied with the packaging material which we have utilized, even if we are trying to do everything properly within our manufacturing operations, we'd end up losing sales. So rather than, facing such an issue, it's better to keep track of this KPI, which is percentage of returns due to poor quality. And the third issue is these guys not responding to us. So to fix this issue, I've come up with a KPI, which is number of supply queries taking more than 2 days to resolve. So I said, you have to keep, when suggesting or recommending a KPI, you have to ensure that it's practical. So that's exactly what I've tried or strived to achieve. So I've, rather than keeping it open-ended, rather than saying number of supply queries, which are left unattended, I'm coming up with a specific KPI, which is totally relevant to the issue at hand, which is number of supply queries taking more than 2 days to resolve. So we are giving them 2 days to resolve the issue. If not, it goes against collaborative supply relationships. So according to the information presented in the scenario, it was extremely difficult to for PB's procurement employees to talk to someone and to be in line with collaborative relationships. Whenever there's a query, the suppliers are supposed to provide instantaneous solutions. So we are giving them 2 days to resolve, and we can keep track of this KPI and find out the type of suppliers who are not responding to us on time. If so, it goes against collaborative relationships, and we have to avoid dealing with these guys in the future. All right, so that's how you should tackle a question pertaining to KPIs. Okay, so the second part is done. I hope you guys understood, what you are supposed to cover when, developing your answers, how you should bring in your theoretical knowledge, how you should focus on, ensuring the necessary application skills. And on top of that, when, stipulating KPIs, which elements you need to focus on and whatnot. So I hope you guys gain an in-depth understanding about these elements, about these theoretical content, and the type of answers you are supposed to develop. So having said that, I'm gonna move on to the third part of today's workshop, which is the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you can raise them now. I'm gonna pause the recording. All right, folks. So thank you very much for those questions. Having completed the Q&A session, let me remind you about the pass rate which we achieved in November, which was 89%. And as you can see, this student ended up achieving 117 marks when the pass mark was 80. This student comfortably passed the examination, simply given the fact that this individual invested on our study material and stuck to the study plan. So you just have 1.5 weeks at your disposal. I do understand that. However, if you really want to, within these 1.5 weeks, if you are solely focused on attempting the 5 mock exams and practicing the redevelopment of answer plans, still you can pass. So in order to ensure that you are fully prepared, that you had gone through questions which are totally relevant to your pre-scene as well as exam standard, it's of utmost importance that you invest on mock exams. If not, by looking at past exam variants, if you think that you can pass, or remember, the past exam variants are based on a different case study. So the internal dynamics, the external dynamics, as well as the financials provided in each case study is totally different to one another. So in such an environment, you be going through, information which is totally unnecessary or irrelevant to your pre-scene. So, focus on these things. And if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com, or you can email us via info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us via this number. And I invite you guys to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok. Go subscribe our YouTube channel because the recorded versions of these webinars and workshops are uploaded onto YouTube. And on top of that, go follow our TikTok handle, because via the TikTok handle, we have shared a mind map of the OCS pre-scene, thereby highlighting the most important points which appear within the pre-scene document. So this is the best type of mind map which you need to have access to. So on a continuous basis until your examination date, keep watching these 3 TikToks so that you'd constantly keep reminding yourself about the most important points highlighted within the pre-scene. So you need not do anything else to memorize the information which appears within the pre-scene. Simply go through these TikTok videos. So having said that, it brings us to the end of today's workshop. I hope you guys gained something out of it. And we are conducting the last workshop next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope you'd take part of it, because I'll be providing you guys with last minute tips which will help you immensely to improve your confidence and maintain a positive attitude before your examination. So thank you very much. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.